Gentlemen, from this day forward, you will all refer to me by the name Betty. Hey, hey, probers. Welcome to But It Was Aliens, the extraterrestrial comedy podcast where we probe alien stories to decipher whether or not they're real, a hoax, or a misunderstanding. We do this to keep you guys safe. You are welcome. I'm your host for today's file, Moonwalker, and I'm joined by the grey-bearded one, Greybeard.
You're obsessed with Greybeard at this point. Utterly obsessed.
You act like it's not your name.
I'd call you Blackbeard, but that's already a pirate.
I'll happily take his moniker.
Black with one grey hair beard.
I call him Jerry, and he is mine. Today we're going to look at the first widely publicised alien abduction in the United States. Have you heard of Zeta Reticuli incident?
Pardon? Zeta Reticuli, that's a star system actually, isn't it? Ooh, my astrology background is coming to the forefront here.
Indeed. Well played, sir. Well played. You may know it by another name, the Hill abduction.
Vaguely familiar. Don't know the story very well, but I've certainly heard of it.
Okay. Well, this is the story of the abduction of Barney and Betty Hill.
I've just remembered why I know of the name.
Is it because of the abduction of Barney and Betty Hill?
No.
And the fact that someone else also references them in his abduction?
Yeah. It's when someone else wakes up wearing the dress. Excellent. Let's roll.
So Betty and Barney Hill are a couple that were allegedly abducted in the 60s. Mm-hmm. Their story starts on the night of September 19th, 1961. The couple were driving home that night, coming back from their vacation in Niagara Falls and Montreal. Two places, lucky bastards. Betty claims that just south of Lancaster, New Hampshire, she witnessed a bright point of light in the sky, and that it moved from below the moon and the planet Jupiter up to the west of the moon, which is pretty amazing considering she knew the specific location of Jupiter and the moon at the time. So to me, there's a hint of astrological knowledge there.
Are we related? Do you know, as you said shit about Jupiter, that's exactly what I thought. I thought, she knows exactly where Jupiter and the moon are. It's like you're my inner monologue.
Why do you want to suck a dick right now? And why are you looking at me?
What?
That came out well wrong. Should have been, why do I want to suck a dick right now?
My inner monologue is questioning why you want to suck a dick. Amazing. This makes me happy.
So Betty reasoned that she was witnessing a falling star. However, it moved upwards and wasn't falling. Not only was it not falling, it started to move erratically and grow bigger and brighter.
Uh-oh.
She urged Barney to pull over so that she can get a better look and so that they can also walk their dog, Desley.
I was expecting a different name there. Well done. That must have been very hard for you.
You have no idea. Barney pulled over at a picnic area just south of Twin Mountain. Betty was looking for her binoculars and described an odd-shaped craft with flashing multiple coloured lights travelling across the face of the moon. While Betty thought that she was witnessing a UFO, Barney, however, had a look and believed it was a plane. So our boy Barney is thinking logically.
Oh boy.
Of sound, body and mind. However, he quickly changed his mind because the aeroplane, without turning, rapidly descended in their direction. It was in this moment that Barney knew it wasn't a plane.
Plane moonwalked. I should have interjected a second earlier. Oh yes, I remember now. Why stop If you see something unexplained in the sky, don't stop and get out of your car. Keep going.
They both got back in the car, cut the dog walk short. Poor little Desley.
Sorry, that name. I just, every time you say dog, I'm expecting the R word.
I also pronounced that wrong. It's Delcy.
Yeah.
So the dog's Delcy.
Delcy or Des?
Let's call it Del. And proceeded to drive toward an isolated mountainous road known as Franconia Notch.
Country road.
They drove slowly so that they could still monitor the object. Betty claimed that at one point, as the craft passed over a nearby restaurant, she could see that the craft was at least 1.5 times the size of the granite cliff that they were driving against.
Big one.
And the profile of that cliff was 40 foot.
Hot damn.
The craft was still moving erratically, and now she could see that it was also rotating. As they continued to drive, about an hour south of Indian Head, they were brought... At no point did I find that funny until you laughed.
I have no thoughts.
They were brought to a sudden stop as the craft, now in front of them, slowly descended towards them. With the whole windscreen of their 1957 Chevy Bel Air now illuminated by the craft, Barney, with his gun on his waist, with binoculars in hand, stepped out of the car and he started walking towards the craft.
Why has he got a gun?
America!
Good point and well made.
So, if you scroll, you can see the car that they were driving.
Yep.
So, if you look at the windscreen,
It's a big screen.
that is his viewpoint. So, looking out from there.
Quite a cool car.
Does look awesome, doesn't it?
I like the dice. I can remember, God, when was it? Maybe the 90s? You see dice in so many cars. You just don't get that so much now.
No. Probably because they obstruct quite a lot of the windscreen.
Yeah, but they're cool and sexy.
You can imagine what Barney must have seen from that windscreen. However, unlike Barney, you probably would have let out a squeaker rather than walk towards it with a loaded gun and a pair of binoculars.
Well, I wouldn't have had a gun on me, because I'm not an idiot, but I would not have let out a squeaker. I'd have been gone before this all happened. As soon as I saw that moving thing in the sky, I know. Meow. Gone.
Barney strolled towards the craft like a badass, and in doing so, looked through the binoculars and straight into the window of the craft.
In my head, he was a lot closer. He's strolling towards the craft. Pulls out binoculars.
Doom, doom.
Suddenly, it's a lot further away.
He described seeing 8 to 11 individuals, seemingly staring back at him. 7 to 10 of them seemed to turn around in unison and head for a door at the back of the room. So he had quite a good view in there if you could see.
He can see into the craft.
The one remaining figure continued to stare him down.
He's made eye contact.
We cannot move.
They're locked in a death stare. Whoever blinks first.
And while staring him down, communicated to him to stay where he was and to keep looking forward.
Huh?
I'm assuming telepathy. Other than that, he must have a booming voice that
He was like,
chosen one, stay where you are. But also, in this situation, I don't know if I'll be able to look away anyway. I think I'd be in total shock of what I'm seeing, like a moth to the flame. And if there was no immediate threat posed, otherwise I would use my sweet ancient weaponry and bonk them on the head.
what ancient weaponry? A nunchuck?
Yep. Since that probe, I always carry nunchucks.
What was it that in that probe, the man who kept them away for so long, didn't he have a machete?
Machete?
Yeah, that's what you... Although it's not good to carry knives, but to be fair, it's not good to carry nunchucks either. But if you're going to have to keep the aliens away...
Exactly. They respond well to being bonked on their head.
Or poked with machetes.
Stabbed with samurai swords. They disappear.
So does the body.
As the craft started to descend closer to Barney, bat wing-like fins began to protrude from the craft, and a long structure lowered from the bottom of the craft. This was roughly 50 to 80 feet away at this point. Fight or flight kicked in. Barney ripped the binoculars from his eyes and and scarpered back to the car.
Good choice.
He told Betty that they were going to be captured and told her to keep an eye on the craft as he floored it.
He told her they were going to be. It's like he's seen the future here. He didn't say they might be. We need to leg it.
He knew what was going to happen.
If he thinks they're going to be, why is he even bothering trying?
Because he knows they're going to be if they stay there.
Peculiar choice of words, but okay.
So if I stood in the middle of the road, it's like, I'm going to be hit by a car.
If I stay here.
Exactly. So as he floored it, the craft followed in hot pursuit. They recalled that they heard a rhythmic beeping noise, which seemed to bounce off the car. As the car started to vibrate, they said that they felt a tingling sensation go right through them, after which they experienced the onset of an altered state of consciousness, after which a second set of beeps brought them back to consciousness. When they came back, they realised that they'd driven 35 miles, but they only had a spotty recollection of it. Bombastic, semi-fantastic, romantic.
Tell me. You know I can't resist. Stop it.
Oh, Carolina.
Carla. Intriguing. Loss of consciousness. How long for? 35 miles. So that could be anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour.
Depends how fast you're going.
Yeah, well, if the speed limit's 30 miles an hour, then it could be an hour. But
Slow speed limit.
well, where were they driving?
Back roads, I reckon. Oh, it does say, but I don't know what those roads are like. I don't know their speed limits.
Exactly. But regardless, we're talking not a couple of minutes, are we? We're talking a little bit longer.
If we were to drive, what are our... Was that your neck?
Yeah. My head just fell off.
If we're driving B roads, we're driving, what, 40 to 50?
Yeah, usually.
So, yeah, you're probably looking like an hour or so. Or a bit more than that.
So I'm wondering what their first reaction was, but I'm assuming we'll get to that. Beeping noise. So I heard the beep before and then after coming back out. Mm-hmm. Could it be like, you know, the Men in Black have their little flashy things? Beep.
Yeah. Theirs don't really make a beep, though, does it? It's
More a... Well, a flash isn't a sound, is it? So
It's true. I really need to watch Men in Black again.
I've got
First
them all
one.
recorded.
Win.
I thought that the other week.
So they got home around dawn, but had some odd sensations and impulses that they couldn't explain. Betty insisted that their luggage be kept near the back door rather than in the main part of the house.
What the hell? Why?
Dunno. It's an impulse they couldn't explain.
That's a really bizarre impulse. Like, I thought they were going to be sniffing milk or something, which is bizarre, but
A lot more bizarre than
people have cravings.
keeping luggage by the back door.
That's just peculiar to me.
Unless they thought they might have to scarp her again.
But wouldn't you put it by the front door?
I don't know what their house layout
Are they going to
like.
run out the back door with luggage in their hands and hop over the fence? Run them through the gardens? Bill next door's like, "Oi! Animal garden!"
Maybe it's there as a alarm system.
So someone trips over it, breaking
Yeah.
into the house.
The strap of the binoculars was leather and had been torn, something Barney doesn't remember happening. The toes of his dress shoes were scraped and he had an overwhelming impulse to check his genitals, but found nothing out of the ordinary. They both took long showers to remove any possible contamination and then sat down to draw what they'd seen.
So they could both remember seeing something.
The craft itself,
Okay, so he had a compulsion to check his junk.
wouldn't you?
Do you feel like you need to check your junk now?
Not right now.
Me neither.
But I haven't driven 35 miles without explanation.
Haven't you?
No. I remember getting here and it wasn't 35 miles.
They took long showers to avoid or to remove contamination, did you say?
Mm-hmm.
How did I know they were contaminated?
Probably just a
All they-
precaution in case.
So they're already thinking that something happened, even though they can only remember seeing a ship? My
But
spidey
then
sense is starting to tingle at
they
that.
also had the beeps
Yeah,
and stuff going on.
but that wouldn't mean they're contaminated. To think that you're contaminated when you can't remember anything else is unusual to me at this point.
But then the beeps and the vibration of the car, you don't know what's happening. Maybe thought they somehow
But if I hear a beep in my car, I think that my tyres are going flat.
No, because
I don't think I've got alien
they didn't
residue
hear the
on me.
beep and then inside their car.
Okay, let's see where it goes.
They also both had watches on, and the watches no longer worked. They found shiny circles on their car the following day, which they tried to check with a compass. However, when they put the compass near the shiny spots, it would spin like crazy, but would then drop when moved away. Betty's dress, which she had on that night, was torn at the hem, zip, and lining. She had put it in her closet, but took it out sometime later and found a pink powder on it. She hung the dress on the washing line and the powder blew away. Now, before I continue, and we did mention it earlier, you may have heard of this dress before, because in a previous file, this is the dress that Stan Romanek claimed he woke up in after being abducted.
So she still has the dress?
Yeah.
Yeah, Romanek said that he woke up in it.
But wasn't his a little bit later?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I think he was implying that he'd been abducted by the same aliens.
And they'd kept the dress.
They'd kept the dress, but she's clearly putting it back. Oh, he's such a bitch.
If you have a look at that picture, you can see, I'm assuming that's Barney's drawing, because Betty wouldn't have seen into the craft.
Okay, yeah, and you can actually see the figures he's drew quite crudely, but to be fair, it's also better than anything I could do.
I was about to say they're stick figures.
It remains better than anything I could do. I like how he's giving it phrasing as well, like he's written at which point he's seen it on both pictures. He's, what? So the red lights on the end extend.
Mm-hmm.
So he's basically drawn a dish-like shape with windows and figures in the windows with two red lights on either side. Then he's drawn a second one with the red lights extended out.
Those would be the bat-like.
Yeah. Unusual. Very unusual. That would make it really non-aerodynamic unless they're pushed directly behind, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, intriguing.
2 days after the initial sighting, Betty made a call to the Pease Air Force Base to report their encounter, and to avoid being dismissed as a loon, she withheld some of the information. The following day, they were called by Major Paul W. Henderson, who called for a more in-depth interview. Henderson, however, in his report, dated on the 26th of September, claimed that they'd probably misidentified the planet Jupiter. This report was later changed to optical condition, inversion, and insufficient data. Henderson's report was forwarded onto Project Blue Book.
Oh, not those guys again.
A few days after the encounter, Betty took out a book from the local library, which was written by retired Marine Corps Major Donald E. Kehoe. Kehoe,
He's my Kehoe.
was also the head of NICAP. Betty wrote a letter to Kehoe explaining that what they'd gone through, and later that letter got passed to Walter N. Webb, who was an astronomer and NICAP member. On October 21st that same year, Webb met with the couple and a 6-hour interview ensued. At the end of the interview, Webb concluded they were telling the truth, and that it probably happened just as they had reported, except a few minor technicalities. For example, the length of visibility, like how long they saw it for,
Yeah.
and the height and size of the ship.
So is he saying that what they're saying they believe is true, or is he saying what they saw is definitely completely true for everyone?
From what I read, he's saying what they saw is true. So he's led to believe that everything they told him is true, and that he fully believes them.
Yeah, I don't think their explanation you mentioned a minute ago about it being Jupiter misidentified really explains seeing a ship with people in it.
Yeah, not at all. So in that case, I think they've just been dismissed, and they haven't actually taken their story.
So we've got conflicting views here. We've got some folks who are thinking they're bonkers and full of it and whatnot. Then you've got Webb, who is a firm believer.
Betty started to have strange and vivid dreams that she said lasted 5 days and never came back.
That's a long time to be asleep.
She was in a coma.
Crikey.
She mentioned them to Barney, but other than being sympathetic, he didn't seem too concerned, which prompted Betty to not mention it to him again.
All marital problems.
Not really taking her feelings on board there, are you, Barney?
Oh, no, Barney. You need to understand your lady.
Purple dinosaur.
Stop checking your genitals and focus on your lady.
She began writing down the details of her dreams. In one dream, her and Barney were stopped at a roadblock and escorted onto a silver disc-shaped ship. They were taken into 2 separate rooms and examined. She describes her captors as being 5 to 5'4", all wearing the same blue suit, grey skin, black hair, dark eyes, blue lips, and prominent noses.
Grey skin, so they were greys. But blue suits again.
Again?
This is what, the 3rd time we've heard of greys in blue suits?
That it is. It's becoming a recurring theme.
But this was 61, you said, wasn't it? So have the other ones we've covered been at a later date and they've heard of this story and are copying it? Or have they all seen the same thing? Question without an answer. Ooh.
I think the other Betty was a few years later. Late 60s, early 70s. And when was Sex Painter? Huggins.
Oh, all for his life.
Yeah, but when was he born?
Oh,
like,
God,
when did that
50s,
start?
wasn't it? No, he would have been 60s, wouldn't he? But when he was 8 years old, that's all I can remember at this point.
60s. So, once the examination had concluded, Betty spoke with the one she called Leader, and he gave her a book which had a lot of strange symbols inside it. She was told that she could keep it, but as her and Barney were being escorted off the ship, an argument broke out between the captors, and she was asked to return the book.
Why is it always when the evidence is right there, suddenly something happens and it's taken away?
Just out of reach.
How convenient. I was feeling quite on board, but then you've got me back suspicious again. My spider senses tingling once more. Seesaw! My dingle tingle.
A few years later, they decided to try hypnotherapy.
As you do.
In Barney's recollection, during multiple sessions, he was told to close his eyes and also kept referring to a pair of eyes that he just couldn't shake. It's as if they were always there, staring. And at one point, he also states that the eyes weren't attached to a body and they felt like they were pushing into his, which would be quite freaky.
Yeah.
While being examined, a cup was placed over his genitals, and although he didn't orgasm, he's sure they took a sperm sample. A blue tube was also placed up his anus and quickly withdrawn. #pro. When being communicated with, he says it seemed more like thought transference, as he never saw their mouths move.
That's consistent with the communication you mentioned earlier on.
And also why he felt the urge to go and check his genitals.
Because he'd spaffed without spaffing.
He was compelled.
What a disappointment that would be. Well, if you're going to get it, get it. Do it properly.
But they tube up his bum.
No. Brushing swiftly past that bit.
Betty's sessions were quite similar to her dreams, however, but there were a few differences. For example, the inside of the ship looked different, as did the description of her captors. During one session, Betty started to become emotionally distressed, and tears started to stream down her face, so the session was cut short. She was encouraged to draw the star map that she described in her session. She also explains that the map she'd drawn had fewer stars than was actually on it, but these are the ones that stuck out to her. She was also told that the solid lines were trade routes and the dashed lines are less travelled stars.
It's getting a bit Star Warsy, this, isn't it?
Once upon a time, in a galaxy far, far away.
It took a few years, but astronomers studied the map and found it was very similar to the double star system of Zeta Reticuli. which is where this case gets its name.
But she must have been quite clued up to begin with to know about Jupiter and the moon, so she might have already had this knowledge.
She did have some astrological knowledge, yes.
So when you said that her memories were different, were they different to what she dreamed, or were they different to Barney's memories?
Bit of both.
You'd expect them to be more similar, considering they had a shared experience until they were separated into different rooms.
But it's where the separation comes in that the differences come in.
Did the individuals look the same?
Barney doesn't describe them.
Okay, he was clearly facing the wall, getting probed. Put your hands up against the wall, don't turn around.
But she was able to draw this.
Mm-hmm.
And if she had, slight knowledge of astronomy, why did it take years for astronomers to figure that out?
Because they probably didn't pay much attention to it, thinking it was bullshit. Meanwhile, I'd just like to add, going back to our little bitch Romanic, that he was able to draw out a massive equation through memory.
Yeah, but people knew what that was. It didn't take people years to realise what that was.
Okay, I'm sceptical, but intrigued.
Benjamin Simon, the conductor of the sessions, speculated that Barney's recollection was possibly a fantasy inspired by Betty's dreams. Barney didn't agree, but was now ready to accept that they'd been Barney didn't agree, but was now ready to accept that they had been abducted, though he never fully embraced it as much as Betty did.
So he accepted it, but he didn't fully embrace it.
Whereas I think I think because obviously he had been raped,
It's so very real now.
He just wanted to forget.
That's
it
horrid.
happened.
Yeah.
I don't want to relive it.
I can understand that.
Whereas for some reason with Betty it was different. I don't think she was treated the same way. So she obviously is different for her.
Okay.
So after this, the Hills went back to their regular lives. They were happy to discuss the events with friends and family, but they never went out to get publicity, which is one thing we're wary of in cases like this.
Yep. This is a very well publicised case though, isn't it?
2 publications came from this. Interrupted Journey by John G. Fuller, which went on to sell millions, and also Captured, the Betty and Barney Hill UFO Experience by Kathleen Marden, who is the niece of Betty Hill. Although I'm unsure if the Hills even got a penny from any of these.
Okay.
Psychiatrists later suggest that this was a hallucination brought on by the stress of being an interracial couple in the 60s, but this was shut down by the Hills as they were very happy and had no pushback or problems from friends or family.
I forgot it was that kind of time period.
Unfortunately so.
Yeah, the world has changed a lot. Not quite enough though.
Definitely not enough. A blogger by the name of Brian Dunning notes that the hypnotherapy sessions take place 2 years after the event, which gives time for them to get their stories straight, and that there's no concrete evidence to support their claims.
Yeah. That's a long time.
But if you believe in hypnotherapy, would it matter if you made something up? Because wouldn't the subconscious take over and you'd reveal the truth? Because you can't select your answers. Or can you?
Unless A, you're faking, so you're not really under, like our friend the bitch we keep mentioning on this show, this episode. Or who's to say you're remembering things that have really happened under hypnosis? Because again, people can be on stage thinking they're chickens and whatnot. Are they really chickens?
Never mind, they are.
That's exactly my point.
Jim McDonald, a resident of the area
He better have had a farm.
in which they claim to be abducted, produced an analysis of their journey, which proposes that their account is started by them misperceiving an aircraft warning beacon as a UFO. The road they took, the beacon appears and disappears at the same point the Hills claim the UFO does. With the rest being down to stress, sleep deprivation and false memories recovered under hypnosis.
Here we go. He knows.
UFO expert Rob Schaefer has written that Betty used to go on UFO vigils 3 times a week and was once joined by John Oswald, a UFO enthusiast. When asked about her continual sightings, Oswald stated she's not really seeing UFOs, but she's calling them that, and that at one point she was unable to distinguish between a landed UFO and a streetlight.
I feel like you're gradually burying this investigation.
I'm just making sure you have both sides.
Yeah, no, it's helpful.
I can't give one without the other.
Yeah.
That would just be
That
biased.
That wouldn't be scientific.
No, it would be a
And as
biased.
former MIBs, we are required to give the truth. Shift out the shit.
Schaefer was also present at a UFO conference in New York in 1980 when Betty presented some of the photos of UFOs she had taken. The pictures were of UFOs chasing her car and coming in close. However, each picture was blurry and out of focus. Not only that, but she took up twice the allotted time she was given and was jeered off stage by those in attendance.
Ooh.
What had first been very sympathetic, it was now this moment that removed any credibility she had within the UFO community from leaders and top activists.
Interesting.
And in 1995, Betty self-published a book
What?
called A Common Sense Approach to UFOs.
She didn't want publicity. She's published a book. Self-published.
Which has stories of seeing entire squadrons of UFOs
No.
in flight
Betty, you've lost me there.
and also seeing a truck being levitated.
Well, what was that magician called? David Copperfield?
I thought you were about to say David Blaine.
I was going to say Uri Geller at first, but that was Spoons.
Blaine!
I'm sure
You're a
Blaine
demon,
could...
David Blaine! Demon!
Cheez-Its! What the f***, David Blaine?
He put me on the roof! I'm on the roof!
Sir?
After all the evidence you have been given,
Yep.
what is your conclusion?
Do you want my conclusion or my final thoughts?
Both.
My final thoughts are that it's bullshit, and my conclusion is that it's bullshit. So it's a very interesting case. I was interested to hear where it's going. At the start, the Zeta Reticuli stuff, it had me intrigued, but I was never really on board. I don't know if it's because I'm predisposed to be a bit sceptical, but something was tingling for me. Yeah, it just...
You got a cock wobble.
I got some sort of wobble. But yeah. The fact that he was always quite reluctant, whereas she seemed very keen about it, that made me
She was
suspicious.
fully on board.
Yeah, it's almost like she wanted it to be aliens too much. So,
Aliens.
that's not what I said. I think you'll find the term I used was bullshit.
But it was aliens?
Bullshit. Shit of the bull.
But of the alien. No, unfortunately, I say unfortunately, I don't think this was aliens either. It's a well-documented,
It's one of the most famous cases, isn't it?
though,
I really
yeah.
know the name.
which leads me to believe why so many people think it's real.
I think that maybe it's the people who want to believe. All the moulders out there.
But you can believe without thinking that this one's real.
Well, the people who are more balanced would perhaps go out and look to cases with more evidence, whereas those who just want to believe to say that they believe,
We'll just
Yeah.
pick this out and say, yeah, this is true.
this one is definitely aliens, yeah.
Right, so definitely not aliens from us today.
Unfortunately not. I wish it was, because if this one was a yes and that dress went missing, that could change our lives.
I mean, we wouldn't look at Romanik in any different way at all.
No,
he's
not
still
at
a little
all.
bitch, but it would be interesting. No.
It had gone from 100% no to a 99.99999% no. And that would be interesting.
All right, before we get to the socials, I'd like to shout out the Anxious and Afraid podcast. I've had some back and forth with them for the last couple of weeks,
Wow.
and I really like their show. They cover topics such as the paranormal and also Mulder files.
Mulder files. Well,
You said
technically, you
Mulder
could
so
call them
much.
Mulder files, couldn't you?
Also, murder files. Since my first listen, I haven't missed an episode. So if you're looking for something new, please go check them out.
Give them a try.
Now, back to our social media. You can find us on Instagram at But It Was Aliens Podcast. We're on Twitter at But It Was Aliens. If you have a story for us, you can email us at butitwasaliens@gmail.com. You can also head over to Facebook, where we have a page called But It Was Aliens. And we also have a group called Extraterrestrial Towers, where you can exchange comments, memes, and all sorts of other alien-like things.
Point our probers.
Which aren't fluid to with others. You can also have a chat with us there. We'll be in there every now and again when we're not busy probing or working
On our probes.
If you're staring at your co-host from across the table and you think he's an alien,
If you're wearing headphones and think they're aliens.
they have an alcoholic beverage beside them and you think they're aliens. Hashtag probe.
Probe.
Peace.